Okay, everyone, this is going to be how to diagnose a Honeywell gas control valve code 5 temperature sensor fault. Okay, this is how I diagnose the code 5 temperature sensor fault. Let's dive right into it, okay? This valve, as you can see, has a code 5 temperature sensor fault. We're going to talk a little bit about the sensor, what it does, and why you'll get a fault code. Okay, the temperature sensor lives actually in the black housing itself. There's a T15 screw here that's also a flathead. You're going to remove that screw, and then with the top cover right here, I do it one at a time, but you're going to stick a screwdriver in here and you're going to pry up and out. You're going to see that the valve, the faceplate, will move forward. Let me pause it for a second and I'll get that on camera. Okay, so all I did was I pried one corner up, the other corner up, and you just want to see a little gap. Once you get that little gap, you could just pry the cover straight out. Don't bend it, come straight forward, okay, because there's prongs on the gas valve itself and you can damage the board. So this brings me to the first reason you'll get a fault. The first reason you'll get a fault on the temperature sensor is it's unplugged. So you'd have to loosen up these screws, remove the board, plug the sensor in, and you're good to go there. That probably will not be a problem unless you have like corrosion in there, and actually removing and replacing the sensor will loosen up any corrosion and make a good connection again. I just unplugged it so I can get the fault code to show you guys. The next step would be removing this T15 screw here. Set that aside so you don't lose it. And you'll notice that there's a tab here and a tab here, and there's a flat tab that actually locks in the valve right back here. So you can't pry here. That actually holds the valve in place, but you got to pry here and here, and you have to be gentle. I start on the right side where it says press tab, and I get this side moved up just a little bit, and then I work the other side, and I'll actually lift it from the bottom up and down, and that will get you past this tab. Okay, so I'm gonna try doing this one-handed, but come in here, pry from the corner, and then I'll actually just lift once I'm prying on the body. Let me see if I can do this with my hand. There you go. Prying forward. I'm taking my left hand, just gently raising the valve. Not getting it all the way out, just enough to get it past. That's all you need to do. You can see it's just slightly forward. Then we're going to work on this side and do the same thing. Okay, so I did it off camera, and I'm sorry about that, but I just pried like this, back gently on the tab, and don't pry too much, just enough to loosen up the tab, and then just gently pull back so you don't break these tabs. Okay, once it's loose, you'll see we're just going to lift it straight up and back. You can set this aside, make sure you don't drop it or anything like that. We're not going to test this in this video. This is just to check for code 5. So 9 times out of 10, your issue is going to be right here. You'll see water. If you have any water dripping out the valve, you need to replace this whole black housing with the temperature sensor. I'll explain to you why. If you have water anywhere along here, and the most common sign of the code 5 and that you have water intrusion is that it'll be dripping out the bottom of the valve. You have like a little staining all along here. That means this black housing with the sensor is no good. So what happens is, we'll flip this over. This is where the sensor actually sits, in this thin tin housing, and you'll get corrosion in a little pinhole, and water will enter through this into this chamber right here, and that's what's causing the sensor to fail. Very rarely will this sensor fail alone. It usually fails when water enters the housing. Alright, now to remove the sensor, I just take my fingers and I push. That's it. And I gently pull back on the sensor. Now the sensor's out. Okay, inspect the sensor for any water or moisture on the sensor. If you have any moisture when you pull this out, then you have water that's getting past here, causing it to fail. You could even take a Q-tip or a piece of toilet paper, just twist it and just stick it in there. If it comes out wet, this housing is no good. So you have to replace the housing with the sensor. Now, to get back to the sensor, I test them cold. If you test this thing hot or still inside the hot water heater, you're going to get a different resistance value. Okay, the ohms reduce the hotter this gets. So at room temperature between like 65 and 75 degrees, we're going to get usually a resistance around 12 on each leg, followed by 24 for a combined value. I'm going to show you how I test that. Okay, my sensor, we're going to put it on to kilo ohms. It's K with the ohm symbol. Now, you'll see these with a variety of different colors. Some customers specifically request to get the exact same color of the wires. That's fine. If you ask me, I'll send you the same color wires. But the testing is the same. Between red and blue, you're going to get the combined ohms of the entire sensor. The yellow is your middle. So we're going to test from yellow to red and then yellow to blue. And they should be around 11 to 12 ohms. And then the combined ohms should be greater than 22 plus, maybe 22 to 25, I consider good. Okay, so doing this one-handed, so bear with me. But you can see I'm back probing the wires, red to yellow. I'm getting a resistance of 13. I'm going to move off camera the wires, my red lead to the blue wire, keeping the black lead in the center. Okay, so I moved it over, and I'm getting a resistance now of 13.4. That's perfect. It's a little cold where I'm testing the sensor, so I expect the resistance to be a little bit higher. Then I'm going to go from red to blue, and we should get the sum of each. So this sensor should be around 26.8 ohms from red to blue. From red to blue should be around 26.8 ohms. Okay, so from red to blue, 26.7 ohms. This is a good sensor. Now, if you want to see the sensor respond, so to speak, just hold it in your hand and you should see the resistance drop. So I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I'm holding the sensor in my hand. I'm not going to be able to do both at the same time. So I'm going to hold it in my hand for about 2 minutes. Then I'm going to go ahead and just test one side and show you the resistance will drop probably to like 8 because my hand's not that hot. But it'll definitely reduce. Okay, so I held it in my hand for about 2 minutes. We see the resistance dropped from 13 to about 10 kilo ohms. And you'll see it gradually increase as the sensor returns to ambient temperature. Again, I always test them out of the gas control valve just so I know where my temperature, where the ohms should be. Again, when the ambient temperature is around 65 to 70 degrees, you should have between at least 12 kilo ohms on each leg with a combined of 24 to 26. I will not send you guys a sensor that is outside of those values, and I've never had a return on a temperature sensor, and when I've sold them at that value. Okay, so now you have the sensor, and how do you fix it? You don't need to buy a whole new gas control valve. If the sensor is outside these values, just buy the sensor. If you have water intrusion, you need to replace this. Just send me a message on eBay and I will sell you the housing with this. Okay? And I can usually overnight it or 2-day air it really fast because this is light. So you don't have to buy the whole valve. Now I'm going to tell you what information I'm going to ask you. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, what is the length of your temperature sensor? So, of course this is not going to focus. I measure the sensor like this. So this one is 3¼ inches. So I need to know that for 2 reasons. When you're requesting the sensor, these come in 3 different sizes. So in order to ensure that you get the right sensor, you'll need to measure it that way, and that's how I measure it. The other thing too is if you need the housing, okay, the depth of the housing I can reference back by the length of the sensor. So this housing, okay, matches up with this sensor. If I send you a housing that is too short, let me see if I may have one to show you. If you give me the wrong temperature sensor, I'm going to send you a housing, okay, and it's going to be hard to tell, but these are not the same. These are not the same. This one is shorter and this one is longer. So if you give me the wrong size and I send you this housing, you're not going to get past your insulation on your hot water heater. It's not going to fit. So that's why I'm going to ask you, can you remove your temperature sensor and give me the measurements, and then I can cross-reference that with the appropriate housing that you need. Okay, so we did our diagnostic procedure throughout this whole gas control valve. Again, this is a mock setup, but this is just to show you guys the questions I'm going to ask you. It's a little hard to explain it via chat, so this is the easiest way. But don't think you need to buy a whole new valve just because you're getting this fault. I'm just waiting for this thing to power up, and we'll show you that. It's going to light up blue now because we corrected the problem. The problem is corrected. There you go. It's blue light right there. Sorry, it's a little faint because I don't have a great pilot, because I'm simulating the pilot right now. But it is blue. Any questions? Reach out to me. And if you can get me the length of your temperature sensor, I have these in stock. They're obviously used, but I test them for water intrusion. I clean them up and I sell it to you with the Teflon tape already on it with the appropriate sensor, and you're good to go. I can walk you through the installation process as well. It is very, very easy. And like I said, these parts are light. When I send you the whole gas control valve, the size of the box and the weight dramatically increases the shipping cost. So like I said, I can overnight these to you guys really quick, and it's very reasonable. I think the last time I overnighted one of these, it was like $15 to $20, and you were back up and running the next day. So just reach out to me, give me your address, give me your sensor size. I usually have these in stock. I'll get you one out and I'll create a separate listing for you. Any questions, let me know. But this is the ultimate best way to troubleshoot a Code 5. Anybody else that tells you different, they're wrong. If you replace this sensor and you have water in here, the sensor's going to fail again. So that's my biggest thing I'm going to tell you guys, and beat it into your head on the chat. Check for water, check for water, check for water. Okay? Again, any questions, just reach out to me. Have a good day.